Seguimos en el Mobile World Congress, haciendo la cobertura del congreso que se está celebrando un año más en Barcelona. Esta vez tenemos un panel de Big Data y nos acompañan Mati de Comptel y Unstructured de Accenture. Y entre los dos vamos a intentar hablar un poco del tema de Big Data en este congreso, Analytics, y ver un poquito cómo los operadores pueden sacar partido de este fenómeno del Big Data y el Analytics. Unstructured, Mati, welcome to teleseminar.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. I know this is a very busy show. It's tight, scheduling is tight. So the idea today is just talk a little bit on big data and analytics and see if we can provide some input to those operators that weren't able to arrive or come to the show because they are in Latin America. So the first question would be for you, if you can define quickly big data, and probably after you would be the one to if you can, reduce the scope, because when you talk about big data, it seems like it's everything. So I don't know if you have a specific definition of big data, and then Mari, you can tell us about analytics.
Sure. I don't have a specific definition on big data, but I'm going to tell you what big data is in my view. But I think when we talk about big data, I all think it's a very funny question, because then I ask my client, what did you do with small data, right?
Okay.
And what we define as big data is, in today's telecommunication world or the ecosystem of telecommunication, there's so much data available. And big data is basically taking huge amounts of data from various sources, processing them real time potentially, and then drawing insight out of these big data to turn them into action. So from data to business outcome. But it's about large amounts of data in a different way to process them.
Okay. Yeah. Mari, I don't know if you want to add on big data or do you want to concentrate on what analytics means for big data?
Maybe we had a panel on big data a moment ago here. So one of the things before the panel we thought of, what's the definition of big data? Let's say it's something that does not fit into Excel. So Excel is growing, the big data is growing. Of course, it's much more data than that, but still, it is, like you said, for me the big data analytics component is really about bringing value from the data. So just data alone, there can be a huge amount of it, but it's really what, as you said, what you do with that data, how do you drive actions, and how to drive intelligence out of the data. So that's where the analytics comes in and start bringing some actual value out of your information. Of course, first you need to be able to collect it and process it, but then in the end, the value comes from what you do with it.
Okay, when we talk about big data or data, that amount of data that operators are running within the network that are not using, people usually divide it in unstructured data and structured data. What complexities do we have in both terms, and what does it mean for the operators, these unstructured data versus structured data, combining the two?
So there's a huge amount of value in using unstructured data. And if you really want to find something out, I would say that 70 or 8% of that insight will come from unstructured data.
Okay, which is a difficult one to process.
It's difficult to process. So for example, if you want to find out what I'm actually doing and where my brain is, you would need to not look at my calendar, you would need to look at my emails, you would look at the correspondence with my secretary. So there's a huge amount of unstructured data. And making sense out of the unstructured data in order to combine it with structured data to get intelligence out of it is quite complex. So it's not about the tools, it's about the brains and the experience making sense out of unstructured data.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree that that's the biggest amount of information. When you add to that things like video, audio, all these things which are harder, perhaps even harder than text data to process, there's vast amounts of it. But when you look at it, also the technologies that you need to use for them, those are quite different. So. But it's about combining them, all the sources that you can. I think that's kind of one of the core concepts of big data. That you try to take all the information and combine it in the end, which is not easy.
It's not easy. Now, we're talking about machines doing this job, or a combination of machines and humans?
So I would say the analytics and the business intelligence technology is already there to do everything that we wanted to do. But it's more the company's mindset, the processes and the skills who are not there yet. And we did a big data survey together with The Economist amongst globally amongst various industries, and we asked companies, what is the biggest struggle you have with big data? And what they were saying is asking the right business questions that big data should answer. Because only if I have the question, I can determine what data I need and how to analyze it.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree completely. It's about the people who are using it. And then also, in a way, one of these topics is who actually owns the data, who has the data in an organization, all the silos that tend to be there in well, many organizations. Different people own different types of data, and they might be a bit jealous about their data even, not really willing to share if they don't get something out of it, even with other departments within the same company. So that's one of the kind of problems of really the processes of utilizing the data, being able to kind of make value out of it, but also being kind of open about the data, even if it stays within the organization, and provide maximal value out of it. So those are some things I think at least we face on an almost daily basis when discussing about big data with for example, operators, that there are very kind of traditional ways of working. Somebody owns the network, somebody owns the customer data, and how do you kind of make everything together, then add all the social media information, everything from the external sources. It can be quite complex to comprehend as a process as well.
Now, would you say then that changing the environment within the operator is more complex than probably the technology that needs to be implemented or integrated with existing systems? Which of the two is more challenging at this point for operators to understand that they need to go through on that direction?
Getting to a data-driven mindset and culture is the most important one. And companies where you have that mindset at the C-level have an easier journey than other ones. For example, we just talked about Telefonica, right? Telefonica is pretty advanced in using data and using big data because they have leadership which truly believes in data as the core asset. But in general, the cultural shift, the people mindset shift, and then adapting the process is much more difficult than technology.
Yes, I have to again agree completely with that. Technology is basically, it's easy, straightforward. You have some servers, you install some operating systems, then you install some software, store the data, buy more disks if you need them, have a cloud-based system. These are all technical questions that are rather easy to answer, but then when you think about the mindset, how do you change people's way of thinking, way of working, it can be much more challenging. But that's really the key in the end. Again, the value is only what you do with the data. So even if you store all the data in the world and don't do anything with it, it's not really going to bring you any business benefits. So.
And I'd like to add something to that. So there's also, what's needed is a mind shift in the IT departments. For example, I read that according to Gartner in 2017, the CMO will have more money to spend on IT than the technical people. And as you were mentioning servers, right? Server capacity is so cheap now.
Yes.
And I think the companies need to change from a mindset of not necessarily buying everything, but having more stuff on the cloud or renting service space.
Sure.
Well, actually, I discuss big data with different companies, and usually they point to the marketing department and not the IT department as the ones driving big data on the organization. So the first department that raises their hand and say, okay, I'm going to invest some money on big data are marketing departments and not IT departments. Is that something that you're also saying, or for what you're saying?
I'm seeing the shift towards that. I wouldn't generalize, but I'm seeing a shift, that the shift goes to, the power goes to marketing. But I think it's a slow shift. It will still, in my experience, take a few years.
Yeah, that is true. I think in general the business users are the ones who need to drive well, they should drive because they want to get the value out of it. I would say we're seeing marketing, but then also the more technical side, when you're looking at how do you control your network, for example, they also can benefit a lot from data, optimizing processes in different steps of the way. But really kind of, if you compare with traditional IT, the first thing that comes to mind are the servers and how do you manage those, so it tends not to be the driving force. Has to be kind of a facilitator, but I've also talked with some very kind of skilled IT people who have very good ideas, and let's build a big data system and get buy-in from the business users. So that's something happens in that direction as well.
So it depends. Essentially,
it does, yes. But I think that's the direction we're going in. So the more and more marketing, more and more business-driven, value-driven kind of mindsets. Okay.
What would you say to those that say that operators, because they have this amount of data, they should monetize it the way Facebook and Google does? Because, and actually I've heard that from a big operator in the US. He was saying, I'm not going to say who that was, but there was an operator in the US saying, probably you know who I'm referring to, saying, well, if Google and Facebook are making all this money and I have more data than they do, how come I'm not making money on it? And they said, because we don't have scientists that know how to handle our data. Now, but can actually operators become the Facebooks and the Googles in terms of extra revenue coming from that data? Can they make money directly out of that data?
Yes, they can. but it requires a focus to do that. So if you want to sell something, you need to have somebody who buys, who is willing to buy and who is willing to pay. And that was the thing about the Googles and the Facebooks. They center their whole business around data, and they are very virtual, and they were very focused in utilizing the data, analyzing the data, generating value, and then making money out of it. It's not the core business of the telcos. If they want to do that, they need to have a clear focus, they need to have a clear strategy, what they want to sell to whom.
Okay.
And then it might work. I haven't seen yet a company who generated a profitable business out of this. But what's very important for the telcos to keep in mind is that they have data sets which are unique to them. Location data, mobility data, and other industries or other companies are very keen on having that information. So with a clear strategy, a clear focus, and the right technology and mindset, they will be able to do it. But it's let's say it's a longer journey.
Okay. It is, and I think, well, you mentioned it a bit earlier that it's about finding the buyers or the kind of users of this data really that is most important. And something we've seen, for example, combining mobile and retail. For example, there's clear synergies, knowing where people are, what they're doing. All these activities can be very beneficial. But Google's and Facebook's, they have a bit of a different view, and they have taken that position from the ground up. But that said, of course, operators have this unique data, and there's a lot of value to be generated from that. But it's not necessarily, of course, well, not only data monetization, but it's also using it for their own purposes, their services, providing things and keeping themselves in a very valuable part of the value chain of that ecosystem that has all the data access.
Yeah, it sounds like too many changes, and it needs to be inside the operator to actually reach that stage. Final question for you, also related to big data, is the real-time component, and we've heard companies saying it's a must, and everybody's announcing their big data technology and say, we are real time in terms of handling it. And I heard some people saying real data is good, but probably not a key factor. It could be, you could run a big data without having real time, but almost real time, and be successful. Do you agree with that, Astrid? Or?
Yes, I mean, real time is a little bit fuzzy definition, right? Real time could be now, but real time could be also something which is based on data which is an hour old. In general, it depends again on the business question and the purpose you want to have, right? If you want to understand that I'm sitting here now with you and you want to shoot me a message to come over there, then you need it real time. But real time is not necessarily needed to be successful.
Okay.
I think we agree on almost every topic, so we're not getting much of a debate here.
You came here or what?
Actually, we met here on
the stage.
We know each other from Finland, right?
Before you came here.
Yeah, but that is very true. So at Comptel we talk a lot about contextual intelligence and try to position it that depends on the situation that you're in. Sometimes it's more relevant to be more dynamic. Let's say location-based marketing. If you're driving your car to somewhere, you want to have a message. Of course, it matters. If you're inside a shop right now, the retailer wants to send you a message. If you do it 5 minutes after they've left the shop, nobody's going back for that. But then when I talk about more predictive, longer-term use cases, it'll be fine to work with hours, days, sometimes weeks, even months if you look at very long-term trends. So it depends so much on the use case at hand. But what I personally think is that the kind of capability needs to be there, and it's going in that direction. So once we start finding new use cases and new kind of ways of utilize this real-time information, it's going to be very important to have the technology and the capabilities in place to do that, and be able to move in that space and expand on the analytics especially. So we've been doing a lot of things around real-time analytics, and I mean actually doing predictive model application in real time and building upon those insights, combining the data that you collect from a longer period of time with what you get right now in the streaming processing. I think that the combination of both is kind of the best of both worlds again here.
Excellent, good. All right, well, Maddie, Astrid, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to let you go. I know you have a very busy schedule and you have to walk a lot to go back to your booth, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much,
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.